talk about what was happening in the streets in the years leading up to 1776. The Stamp Act and, the shot heard around, just the way you knitted them together. Do you have a favorite story you could share from that period?
Well, so actually my favorite story about that chapter is, I can't believe I pulled that one off. Because that's like a lot of history in, how many pages? Like 9 pages? I can't tell you how many times I had to rewrite that sucker. But the point of that piece was, again, that so many people, 1776 project, think that, so many people think that American democracy sprang alive from the head of George Washington, right? And the truth was that the colonies, the 13 colonies, and they were not all the colonies, by the way, there were plenty of British colonies that did not join the independence movement. Standing invitation for one of them to do so, and they were just like, thank you, we're good. But the ones who did were bitterly divided amongst themselves. They were made up of people who spoke different languages and had different cultures and had come from different continents and distrusted each other on this continent. And the idea that they would go from the treaty that ended the French and Indian War of 1763, they're all divided. They all love, they love being part of the United Kingdom precisely because there was some order to it. That they went from that to declaring independence by 1776 is mind-boggling. I mean, people say to me today, oh, it's going to take us forever to get out of this moment. I'm like, tell that to the revolutionaries. Because in 1763, they were happy, loyal subjects. By 1776, they're declaring independence. So how do they do that? And the story of how they did that is the constant conversation that goes on between people who recognize problems with what they consider their rights as Englishmen, and these are going to be white men of property, Englishmen, and those who aren't paying that close attention. And it's not top down, this is what you should think. It's, hey, what do you think about these laws? What are you doing in your town? How are we going to work together so that we make sure we protect our rights? And again, they're not talking about women, they're not talking about indigenous Americans, they're not talking about black Americans, they're really just talking about white men. But they're having a conversation about what it means to live in a society and who should have rights in a society and what should that mean. And as they do that, and as they have these larger conversations, they come up with an idea. And it's a crazy radical idea in 1776. And that's the idea, and mind you, they only managed to come up with it because they exclude people of color and they exclude women and they exclude indigenous Americans. But they come up with the idea that they put into writing that every man is created equal. That's really revolutionary, if you think about it. In a time when people had lived under kings or had lived by religions or had lived by traditions or had lived by nation states, all of which defined each other as being better than the other neighbors, the idea that you could say, we're going to create a new kind of government in which everybody is created equal is absolutely revolutionary. And that construction of that idea turns that group, that mongrel group of people who don't even speak the same languages into a group that can go on to win the Revolutionary War. And my favorite story, I guess, aside from the fact that I managed to pull it off, was the fact that at the end of it all, one of the founders writes to another and says, when we talk about the revolution, we're not talking about the war. The war was the aftermath of the revolution. The revolution was in everybody's minds. And I love that idea that all it took was imagination to say, all of us who don't get along, don't like each other, come from different continents, don't speak the same language, have different cultures, can come together if only we have the imagination to do that.